Okay, we are recording, so 3, 2.
Hey everybody, welcome to DragonCon Goes Virtual Unofficial. This will not be part of the main DragonCon feed, but this is part of the Classics Track doing panels for your enjoyment over DragonCon weekend. Thank you for spending your weekend with us. We are all incredibly sad that we can't do this in person and without pie. But I am Gary Mitchel. I am one of the two directors of the American Sci-Fi Classics Track at DragonCon. Unfortunately, Joe could not make it because his time travel didn't work. And so we are here to discuss a time travel movie from the brilliant Terry Gilliam. And I will hand this over to Director Faber. No. Are we doing 12 Monkeys tonight?
No, that's on Sunday.
Oh, which one are we doing tonight?
Tonight's Real Genius, dude.
Oh, okay, so I'm a doofus. Hey, it's
I had a little heart attack. It's like, oh man, did I watch the wrong movie?
I got confused.
It came out. This is going to be really weird for me.
Yes.
Wow, this is kind of awkward now.
Hey, at one convention, I did an entire panel, and when it was over with, people came up and went, wasn't this supposed to be about something else? Like, I just looked at the other panelists and went, why didn't anybody say anything? We've been here for an hour.
Oh, my goodness.
Okay, everybody,
right,
welcome to the Oh Brother, Where Art Thou 20th anniversary panel.
Actually,
I'm a man of constant sorrow.
Constant. Yeah, well, that kind of fits though, because we'll just we'll edit in post.
Okay, all right. So
let me start over then. Let me know when you're ready.
All right, let us do again. Well, I haven't hit stop for recording, so it's okay.
All right.
So you guys will edit the video.
Yeah. Maybe. Hey everybody, welcome to DragonCon Goes Virtual Unofficial. This is the DragonCon American Sci-Fi Classics Track. We are doing this panel for you in advance for your enjoyment over DragonCon weekend. We are all incredibly sad that we could not do this in person with you this year, but we wanted to still bring you the DragonCon experience and the joy of DragonCon by talking about nerdy, geeky stuff. I am the co-director of the American Sci-Fi Classics Track, Gary Mitchel. You can see my Twitter right here. I finally have that down. I've done enough of these Zoom calls. And we are here to discuss about a fantastic nerd movie, one of my favorites, and one of the first movie that I noticed Val Kilmer in because I didn't see Top Secret till later. And I hope you enjoy this hour of fun we're going to give you. And I turn us over to our moderator, Director Faber. What movie are we talking about today?
Hey kids, we are talking about the 1985 classic Real Genius. And it is an awesome, awesome film directed by Martha Coolidge and produced by Brian Grazer. This was my first introduction to Val Kilmer when, you had him, in so many things since. And so it was real interesting to see, you had, all the tropes from, the basic, teen comedies in this and everything. But this one actually had real heart to it. And there was something about it that always caught on to me. And it was an amazing, amazing film. And we have a great bunch of people here to talk about it. You've probably seen most of these folks on Earth Station 1, which is my podcast, which is part of the ESO Network. And you can find us at earthstation1.com. Real easy, real fun. Let's, of course, introduce Miss Lacee Aderhold.
Hi, guys.
We also have Ashley Pauls.
Hello.
And, of course, Kent's license plate himself. You have Mr. Alex Autrey.
It's a pleasure.
It's always great to have you guys here. These are my usual movie folks, so it is actually great to be able to sit with you guys, and this is going to be fun to talk about. This one, I was hooked with it from the very first time I had seen it back in 1985. And I don't think I saw it quite at the movies. I probably saw it on HBO the first time. But I know I saw it fairly recent after it started. What about you guys? I know Ashley wasn't even born yet, so we're not even going to ask her yet. But Gary, Lacey, or Alex?
I saw it on a home video.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
I saw it in the movie theater, and then I remember when HBO had the little pamphlet that came out and you could see the single movie and it would have all the times it was playing the whole month. I think I watched it probably 40 times in 30 days. I'd catch the morning or the evening. It was just one of my favorites from the get-go.
Oh, I totally understand that and everything. What about you, Alex?
For me, it was HBO, and it was that or Porky's.
Yeah, of course.
So yeah, but no, I that's where I caught it. But I had already seen Top Secret, so I knew of Val Kilmer because I did see Top Secret in theaters.
Ah, gotcha. Yeah, because those came out fairly close together, didn't they?
A little bit, like within like 6 or 7 months of each other, I believe.
Well, Alex, we usually ask you during, our movie segment,
Yeah.
How did this movie do?
Well, as far as overall box office goes, we're not talking like a big hit like 12 Monkeys, but its opening weekend, it actually
Nothing is a 12 Monkeys. Come on.
No, nothing is a 12 Monkeys. Anyway, it did not do overseas at all.
No.
So that's kind of interesting. It made.
Well, they don't have college overseas.
Well, yeah. It did 2.5 million in its opening weekend and finished with 12.9 million, which, adjusted for inflation would bring it to about $33 million. So it was a small film. All in all, not bad. It definitely got more steam thanks to HBO continually playing it.
Oh, sure.
And sort of developed a following. But at that time, it only played in 990 theaters.
Oh, wow. So it wasn't even a big release.
No.
Oh, wow.
Do you have the production cost on it?
I can
usually
find that right here. The budget was $8 million.
Yeah.
So it made bank.
It made bank.
It
did what it needed to do. And at a time when you're looking at smaller films with a science or science fiction budget, I would say it's probably scoring around the same amount as a Last Starfighter, or even maybe even a Tron at the time.
Okay. So now I'm going to open this up to Ashley. This is her first time seeing this. Ashley, let's hear your thoughts.
Yeah, so interestingly enough, I'd actually not heard of this movie before I was asked to be on the panel, so I was really excited. I love discovering movies that are completely off my radar. And the interesting thing about this one is that I probably wouldn't have chosen to watch it if not for this panel. Teen comedies and like 80s theme stuff is not necessarily my thing. Don't kick me off the Zoom call yet. But I always
Where's
try to
that
go
disconnect button?
Yes. Don't disconnect me yet. There's more. But I always try to go into a movie with an open mind. And I found that I actually quite enjoyed this. Like you said, Mike, I think there's a certain sense of heart running underneath the hijinks and the funny stuff. And it was actually a fun time to watch. And the ending I thought was very well done and a nice little bit of revenge, students getting back on the professor who had tricked them. So this isn't necessarily a movie I thought I would have loved to talk about, but I really enjoyed it. And I'm excited to talk about it more with all of you.
That is awesome. And it's pretty cool because it's multi-generational. It's, the movie itself is almost timeless. It could still happen today almost. Some of the technology, of course, different, but the premise of like a Caltech type university where you have all the geniuses and such then the big bad professor who happened to be the bad guy from Ghostbusters. He. And it was just pretty awesome to be able to see that and to have, that being almost like it did feel pretty timeless with that. You had the young student, the fish out of water, and you had his, pretty eclectic roommate. You could see that now. I'm actually surprised this wasn't tried to be made into a sitcom or something like that.
Oh, for sure. Or remade, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
There was a rumor of a remake in like the early 2000s. I remember reading something about it and thinking, oh, but okay, yeah. If they had gone the right way, they were talking about getting Val Kilmer in to play one of the older characters, maybe the Atherton character, and kind of go that way with it. But I'd never it was like one article in a storm of never happening.
I would have loved Val Kilmer if they're remaking it. Val Kilmer and the Laszlo Holyfeld.
Yes.
Oh yeah,
spot
that would have had to
be
been
perfect.
Yeah.
yeah pre-cancer, because he would have needed his voice for it. So
Not really, not for most of
Yeah.
the series,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah, that's true.
that's true. But he was classic in, because I saw him recently in Jay and Silent Bob reboot,
Mhm.
and he was great as Blunt Man. So it was perfect. So, but it's pretty awesome, from the start, seeing Val Kilmer, that's what caught my attention for the film. His character just lit up every single scene he was in. And it was just awesome. What for you guys caught your attention with it? Because it could have been easily another rom-com teen movie of the time.
I think for me, it was the fact that it was one of the first movies that I saw that didn't have a genre. I mean, it had the coming of age, it had, the humor, it had intelligence and irreverence, which was not something that you used to get. I mean, it was one of the first movies I saw where I worked at Blockbuster and we never knew where to put it. It ended up being in the comedy section, but we almost would put it in like 4 different sections.
Yeah.
No, totally makes sense. What about you guys?
For me, when I watched it as a kid, I really identified with Mitch, and trying to fit in, trying to find the group, and it was like I was able to identify with him like almost immediately. But then Val Kilmer is the guy I wanted to be. I mean, just from that opening scene when we see him and he does the trick with the liquid night, or not the dry ice, to get the soda for free, and all his one-liners, like I still quote to this day of, "Oh, I drank what?"
Well, that's very true. What about you, Alex? What caught your attention with it?
For me, it's the bullet humor. It's very fast. It's very, something is said that you can put a spin on, and you take it. And honestly, I adopted a lot of my smart Alec humor from this, as Lacey's shaking her head, because it's just kind of like I'll catch something and immediately respond. And it's not always a factor of just keeping a filter going. It's just, it's there. But because of that, I think Val Kilmer's comedy in this is a dangerous style of comedy.
Well, you never know what's going to come out of his mouth.
Exactly. And the way that, he's sitting there, the moment which he gives, he comes in with the yogurt, and he goes, "Here, taste this. Does it taste too sweet today?" He's like, "No, what is this?" Because I don't know. I found it in a lab. It's
which is just awesome.
Moment. Yeah. It's a great moment, but that's what caught me was the speed of the humor. Because when you're young and you see this movie, you're laughing because the house explodes.
Right.
And
oh, look, popcorn.
Yeah, and look, the kids are getting to eat all the popcorn that's gone through insulation and wood.
This was the 80s. Come on.
Yeah, asbestos and the dog. Anyway, but it was the 80s. Kids didn't care.
Kids, parents let their kids play out at night. Come on.
But when you're a little kid, you get jokes like that. When you're in high school and college and you're learning things like I drank what is infinitely funnier if you get the joke. And obviously, anything involving Kent's license plate.
Oh, of course. I loved, the whole conversation between Jesus and Kent. It was just awesome.
Oh, that scene is so good.
Yeah.
And Kent is such an asswipe. It is, it is awesome that, he plays the total douchebag and basically sub Jerry, and it's pretty awesome. Wait, don't call me Jerry.
Even in his wardrobe, if you watch the film like throughout, every scene that Kent and Jerry are in together, they're wearing the same thing. He always, if Jerry has the sweater over his shoulders, so does Jerry, so does Kent. It's just mirrored all the way through. ridiculous and fantastic at the same time.
Yeah, and
Oh.
Val Kilmer's character is like 2 inches from being a Batman villain.
Oh God,
All
yeah.
he knows, all he needs is like one small nudge.
Something
Exactly.
happens to his mother Martha, and then
Yeah.
Why'd you say that name?
it just popped into my head. Sorry. Yeah. So, no, there's a lot. Yeah, and it's possible. There's a lot of scientists in that movie who are one bad issue away from becoming a Batman villain.
Oh,
But-
Jordan can easily be a Bat villain in a
I'm
heartbeat.
pretty
Yeah.
sure Jordan is a Bat villain.
Yeah.
Why was she sanding her floors in the middle of the night? Can
Uh-huh.
somebody explain that to me?
This is somebody who needed to,
yeah,
discover
no,
marijuana.
I
Yes.
Yes.
loved her. She just needed to chill.
Yes.
But yeah, no, there's a lot of cool moments. A lot of a lot of the science in there. One of the great things about this movie is the fact that it just makes science look cool.
Mm-hmm.
Oh God,
Like
yeah.
it's fairly obvious that most of the Mythbusters were either in this film or were inspired by it.
Oh, I'd almost expect
the
it.
pool party.
The pool
Yes.
party was delightful.
Wanda Tressler's School of Beauty.
I also
Yeah.
want to point out that a man who blew up the planet is in that pool party scene because the character of Milton is played by Dean Devlin, who later went on to do Stargate and Independence Day.
Mm-hmm.
And
And
he
if
popped
you're
up on the screen. I was like, oh my God, it's Dean Devlin.
And if you're talking about weird cameos, Stacy Peralta is the guy in the opening scene. He's the shuttle pilot.
Oh.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. He went on to, he was a professional skateboarder with Tony Hawk and went on to direct Lords of Dogtown and all that kind of stuff.
So
Yep.
lots of directors in this film.
A lot
Oh,
of different-
it's pretty awesome. The cast they have put together for this was just awesome and everything, and it was believable too. And which was really cool to see.
Yeah.
And from the people they had working for the military, you had a lot of character actors and stuff. Oh, wait a minute, I saw him in War Games. I saw him there. I saw and it's just cool. And then of course when they introduce to Jerry, and you saw him in Ghostbusters. Yes, he has no dick, basically. So and it's just awesome to see. And some of the the kid who played Mitch, he was awesome because he's been popping up all over over the years. He's popped up in tons of different movies and stuff. He's never made a big name. I think this is the movie he's best known for. But he's played a lot of smaller roles and such.
And he's been in like every TV series ever made, basically. If you look at his IMDb, it's just one after the next. He's done like one episode of everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
But he's a perfectly believable geek. He's awkward without it being forced awkward. You just buy him as this kid who's out of his depth because his own smarts have pushed him so far.
He's in an area where he has no depth because the home life he's clearly too smart for.
Mm-hmm.
The whole sequence where he's explaining lasers to his dad, and his dad says, "Oh, so it talks."
Yeah.
That's a wonderful line. That's a line that says, "I'm an idiot and I don't know what I'm talking about."
And the
And of
mother,
course-
when she looks at Jerry and says, "I just watched that Radioactive Isotopes and I have a question. Is that your real hair?" Like, what?
Yeah, exactly. Please tell me you were adopted. I love that. And it was just fun. What for Ashley? What kept you watching it? Because sometimes when you watch a movie and it's like, oh, this is cute or this is just okay. What about the movie captured you?
Yeah, well, I'm actually going to kind of echo what Gary said a little bit earlier in that I really related to Mitch as well. Like growing up as a geeky teenager, I had troubles kind of fitting in and finding my place. And college was where I felt like I really found myself. Like I found other people who were nerdy and creative and liked the same kind of things I did. So I have a lot of nostalgia for that college years of my life, just because I felt like I really started to become who I was meant to be. And I love that they treated Mitch sincerely and didn't just just make fun of him. I was worried he was going to get bullied from the whole movie, but I loved how Chris and some of the other students took him under their wing and they became to be friends and went on these adventures together. So I was really glad they took that type of the story versus having him feel like he was isolated and being bullied throughout the whole film. I loved seeing the camaraderie between the group and learning and playing together and getting into all kinds of crazy problems.
And that was the interesting thing, because even like Chris was telling Mitch that, I was you for 3 years of school, and, wearing the tie, wearing the sweater, wearing the slacks every single day. And, then I met Laszlo and that all changed. And when Mitch went into the closet and finally figured out how to get into Laszlo land, as I like to call it, it was just awesome. And the ride that he went on, that little elevator and everything, oh, that was just so awesome.
Nice little subliminal messaging in there. On the side of the car is the number one.
Mm-hmm.
So,
So how long did it take him to build that rail system through the, like,
Jordan did it overnight.
right?
Yeah, exactly.
She wasn't sleeping. She never sleeps. It's okay.
Gotcha.
It's weird. In 1984, there was another college film involving less than jocular people. Called
Revenge.
of the Nerds. Yeah. And the thing is that these two movies actually bookend each other really, really well in just how different they handle it. Because in Revenge of the Nerds, you root for the dumb little nerd guys because they're picked on throughout the entire thing. In this movie, the nerds are the main focal point, but not as being picked on or put upon, but instead being celebrated for their genius. When you have Ick pull out the cherry because he grows them and it's the size of an apple. That's a great moment. That's a moment where you just kind of sit there and go, that's a little absurd, but I like it.
And
especially if you dig cherries.
Throwaway moments too, like all the little tiny things that were in the background, like when they were doing the ice skating, two of them are talking, and at one point you see this one guy who's literally, this is an extra who is just chewing up scenery in the back, like holding onto the wall, trying not to fall, and he's going back and forth. And it's just, I don't know.
He was on Billy Zane level of scenery chewing, but it was brilliant. It was brilliant.
Exactly.
And that's one of the other things I really love about this movie, and I'm glad you brought it up, is so many teen comedies, especially from this era, are all about, let's show some breasts, let's get the characters in a quest for getting some. And that's not really the point here. It's a romance in a way, but it's not that these days you would call sexual assault level.
No, where you had a lot of that in Revenge of the Nerds.
Oh yeah.
In this one, Ashley, have you seen Revenge of the Nerds?
I have not.
Oh, okay. So I won't spoil it for you. There's a lot of sexual assault possibly in that movie.
Yikes.
I would nix the possibly line.
Okay, there is. But in this, it was very innocent comparatively. The love angle between Jordan and the kid, it was very innocent because they were both very naive and everything. And it was very, very well done. And she was in both of those movies too, which is pretty awesome. And everything.
The two major quote unquote sexual entities of this film, the more predatorial or more I'm clearly pushing for it, characters are both women. In this film, which is great, directed by a female, so we're able to kind of get that empowerment right there, because it's Shelley who's trying to get her list.
Yes.
And then the girl from Valley Girl, whose name completely escapes me at the moment, who apparently really enjoys lumber.
Oh, exactly. What, a 6-inch penis?
Can you drive a 6-inch spike through a board with your penis?
A girl's got to have standards.
Yeah. Yes, of course.
I always say that a girl's got to have her standards at any given point. If I can say that in a conversation, I will. It's one of my favorites.
That's a great line.
Yeah.
Oh, it is a great line. And it stops Chris right in his tracks too, which is awesome, because that's something he would have said too, you know. And it's like when he went on that job interview and he was wearing the alien ears, with the little things. People actually used to wear those, Ashley, in real life, you know.
It was a
I
very
did.
strange time.
Me too. That or the Steve Martin arrow going through your head, you know. Exactly. So, but it was the 80s. Just put it that way. But it was kind of fun, you know, because, you know, Chris was the wise guy. He was the one with the quick boom, 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 never knowing what's coming out of his mouth or which direction he was even going into. And then when Jerry told him, nope, you're out, you're going to flunk, you're not going to get that job. And the look on his face is like his whole life almost like ended right there. It's like everything he worked towards out the window and everything. So, and it was just, and then to have Kent fuck up the laser experiment, and you know, that was like the final straw, but he pulled it out, which was really awesome.
Yeah, and that's another thing that's amazing about this movie, is because you got to think this was made. You know, it came out in '85, which means it was made around in '84, height of the Reagan era. And here's a movie that's basically anti-military, anti-Star Wars, which was Reagan's huge thing he wanted. That was a brave stance, especially for a comedy.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure Reagan was probably like, "Ooh, can we get one of those?"
They were already working on one.
Oh, I'm sure they were.
You know, that's the thing. And yeah, exactly right. That was like second term for Reagan at that point.
Yeah, he was reelected.
And they were definitely, there's a crossbow is 100% Star Wars.
Yeah.
In this. And I think that's what makes it a little more believable, because if we had already seen, you know, that we were pushing for things like this, I think that sequence would have been kind of one of those, no, we're not going to have that. And did anybody recognize the Kennedy assassination when they were doing the test?
And that was favorite.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, very much so. It's just like all the people were out there like going, "Oh, look at this!" You know, conspiracy theory.
Yeah, and then the laser went back and to the left.
Of course, from the grassy knoll.
Only if we had Kevin Costner in the movie.
Second laser.
There was a second laser.
Exactly. It was coming from across the field and everything. So, oh, and when Mitch and Chris like snuck onto the base, and Mitch had the mustache on.
Oh my gosh!
Beautiful.
It was like,
so funny.
It's like when I tried to grow a mustache back then, it didn't work. Come on, kids. It was just like, yeah, you could tell it's fake.
Is that why you're not growing one now, Director Faber?
Ancient Chinese secret. No. So, but yeah, it was very interesting to see the story and everything. I just think this one worked from end to end. I don't think there was anything in this movie that didn't work well. Alex,
there are 3 musical montages in the film.
It's the 80s.
It's an 80s trope.
80s, of course.
It is an 80s trope. The movie is an hour and 42 minutes long, and they needed to put in 3 musical montages. That said, one of my favorite moments in the movie is smack in the middle of one of them. And it's the moment where they're in the study session and the guy freaks and just snaps. And he's screaming at everybody, and he's screaming, and nobody's reacting. And he finally just runs out of the room, and Ick just stands up, walks over, and sits in his spot.
Exactly.
It was like everybody was kind of waiting for it. You know, somebody here is going to snap, and then I'm going to get that spot at the table. So it's not a matter of if; it's a matter of when. But yeah, as far as 80s tropes go, there are 3 musical montages.
Oh, and you know,
this hour and 42-minute film. So
when my son first saw that movie, I showed it to him for the first time. He was laughing his ass off when they walked into the classroom, and it was all the tape players recording the speeches. It's like, Dad, do they really do that in college?
Yeah.
Like, now it's iPhone, son.
Yeah.
And the best bit of that is when we pan over, we see that the professor is just the tape reel.
The
giving
reel-to-reel
lecture.
tape.
The math on tape is hard. Listen carefully.
Listen carefully.
It's just awesome. So Ashley, since we were talking about it being the 80s, was there anything that you didn't get? And I'm not trying to put you down. It's a serious question because some of it is dated.
Think back to it. There's nothing that really pulled me out of the movie per se. Like watching it, it's set in that time. But even as someone who doesn't particularly have like a lot of nostalgia for 80s culture, it seemed believable. I think the things that kind of transcend whatever time it's set in is the kids and their relationships. So yeah, nothing really pulled me out of the film too much. My husband gives me a hard time because I don't really like 80s music, but he heard me watching the movie and he yelled down the stairs, "Oh, I love that song." So he's a fan of the soundtrack. He didn't watch the movie with me, but as an 80s music fan, he approved of the music.
Well, at least he has somewhat good taste.
There
He's
you
married
go.
to you. So it's okay.
Aw.
But yeah, it's pretty awesome because, you had in the movie, you had Tears for Fears, you had, a lot of other pretty big 80s bands.
Steve Winwood.
Yeah, Steve Winwood was in it. And it was just like, it was pretty awesome. And I never really explored the soundtrack to see if it even came out on CD. So it would be interesting to see.
I feel like
if only we had the internet to do that or something.
Yeah.
But it was pretty cool.
It is on CD.
Hey,
it is. All right.
Yeah.
I'll have to find out.
Can we just appreciate the modem to modem connection between the two of them from an Air Force base to a boiler room at a college? Yeah, I'm watching it and he picks up the phone and I'm like, well, they've lost the connection now.
Exactly.
So.
Well, I'm sure Laszlo has.
Yeah, but of a lot of the 80s nerd and even some modern nerd computer movies, it's not that egregious in what the tech can do. It's not the tech is magic.
Yeah.
Like a lot of
No.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
Now, it was funny, when they had to change the chips. It's like, oh my God, that's the days I used to build computers and everything. I remember having to build a hard drive and putting the motherboard together and putting the 8 megs of RAM into it, into the 125 megabyte hard drive, It's like, yeah, I remember that really well. And it's funny though, because the technology they were using, it was so cutting edge at the time.
Yeah, they had both Apple and Hewlett Packard supplying computers for them for the film. And one of my favorite things is in their dorm room, there is a computer on not Mitch, but Chris's desk, and the computer itself is bigger than the monitor.
Yeah,
and that was the 80s.
Yep.
Oh, yeah,
that was the
time.
80s, and that screen was green.
Yep.
Was it ever?
Oh,
and
yeah.
they had the big floppy drives and everything in it.
Nope.
It was just like, oh wow.
Laszlo's got a great line in the film in which they're transferring the data back, and it freezes, and he goes, "Uh-oh," and they're like, "What?" And then it goes, and he goes, "Oh, nothing."
We've all been there.
We're
Yes,
tempting you, and then we're good. It's fine. It's fine. It wasn't the case where Windows didn't figure out how long it was going to take, so it just said 40 years.
Exactly.
Yep.
Or the blue screen of death or something.
Or the blue screen of death or anything like that. Yeah. So.
Or networking a Mac to the alien spaceship.
Hey, that could work.
You have to remember this.
Dean Devlin would know this.
This is all You've Got Mail.
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah.
that was another 5 years away. Come on, at the time.
Oh.
So it's pretty amazing, and I liked it and everything. It was neat to see that when they got the laser to work, and I love how when it burned through the board and then the wall and then out the building through the I kept on going, and it was
through the basketball team.
Yeah.
I mean, it apparently at some point went up because it bore through like statues and then burned through the purgatory
the sign.
billboard.
Yeah.
and got bigger because, somehow it expanded.
Because light expands as you go further.
Because light expands as you go along, sure.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's just science.
Yeah. That said, I'd go for a Limbo Burger. That stuff looked good.
Mm-hmm.
So.
It did. So yeah, I liked it a lot, and it was sad to see Jerry's house die, but it was well deserved.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a big Jiffy Pop popcorn death to it.
Yes.
Yeah. When did you twig to exactly what the plan was?
I didn't. I don't. You didn't until it happened. And everything.
I didn't have any inkling.
Yeah, I've seen this movie hundreds of times because I used to. I would fall asleep to movies, and this was one. I would throw it in the VCR, go to sleep. Mm-hmm. So it would play while I was, So you engross the film while you're sleeping. It's osmosis. But I watched it last night, and for the first time realized there's a scene in which they're getting cases of popcorn.
Cases, yeah.
Oh wow!
And
I didn't even realize
with me before that's what they were getting when they were getting those boxes. Was that that's the popcorn, and so yeah, that's another thing about this film is that no matter how many times you watch it, more than likely you're going to catch something new. You're going to hear something that you haven't heard before, or you're going to see something that you haven't heard before, or you're going to realize that Dean Devlin's in this movie. So there's no telling what you're going to find when you're watching the film.
A little bit of trivia though with this one.
Okay.
In 2009, the Mythbusters tried to recreate the final scene in if they could
fantastic.
If they could burn, heat popcorn with a laser enough to expand and destroy a house. It did not work. There was not a powerful enough laser out there to do that. Which is,
Does anyone know if there is a powerful enough laser? I read in 2017 they were working on a 1 megawatt laser, and in the movie they were working on a 5 megawatt I can't say the word laser. So I just was wondering because I was look, I'm not a science person, so I was confused by the fact that they were using mega instead of kilo. One's distance, one's space. Yeah.
And at the same time, we were all saying gigawatt. So.
Yeah. But so does anyone know?
A gigawatt? What do you mean a gigawatt, Rory?
That's another panel. No idea.
But yeah, no. I think the 1 megawatt is from the hottest on record, but the military doesn't let us know half the things that are going on anyway. So it's possible. Well, and they do have a laser now that is supposed to be able to shoot a satellite down. So
according to the Google, the most powerful laser beam ever created has recently fired at Osaka University in Japan, which they had a peak beam with a peak power of 2,000 trillion watts, 2 petawatts, for a trillionth of a second.
So a megawatt is 1 million watts. So
yes. Okay. So this was 2,000 trillion watts.
So then yes.
So yes.
Yeah. So yes. So Jerry might be getting his dream done. Yes.
Yep. It was a surface as wide as a human hair for the duration of a trillionth of a second.
Wow. Yes. Well, as soon as they expand it just a little bit, the Mythbusters can try again.
There you go. Pop some popcorn.
Instant popcorn if it's that
instant
fast,
popcorn. Exactly.
They're gonna burn it.
Yeah.
They're just
Flash
gonna burn
it.
Exactly. But it was neat to see. It was a great experiment, and I thought it worked perfectly. I thought it was so well done and came out of, truthfully, it came out of nowhere. Yeah. You didn't think that's how the movie was going to,
Yeah, you knew they were gonna get him. That's why I said he's like one nudge off from being a Batman villain, because of all the different ways to get revenge on the guy who screwed you and sold your project to the military for a weapon completely opposed to all your moral and fiber. Let's blow up his house with some popcorn.
Well, because there was one time that he said he didn't like the smell.
Exactly. And the thing interesting about it is, Chris was out of there. He was graduating and he was getting his dream job. You know who I felt bad for? Mitch. Because he was stuck there and he had to live with the wrath of Jerry, if you think about it. You know,
If Jerry didn't end up going to jail.
Yeah, I was about to say, I
This is
think
true.
Jerry, well, they weren't going to get fired. He had tenure. But yeah, no, he was good. He was going to go to jail.
He might have been reassigned. Wasn't that what they did to the guy in the first meeting?
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Who didn't
yes.
feel right about, oh, that was creepy. Oh, we're going
that
to
was.
reassign him.
Yeah. What was it?
And-
I don't remember. That wasn't the word, but yeah.
Yeah, and it was just interesting because they literally were like, yeah, we're going to reassign him. And it's like when William saw it the first time, he's like, Dad, they're going to kill him. It's like, yeah, kind of, sort of.
Yeah.
And it's like, Dad, is there a lot of killing in this movie?
Oh,
Just
yeah.
watch it. Yeah.
Hundreds.
It's real dark and violent from here.
Yeah.
This is when you just also realize that you don't eat a hamburger or make your breasts grow bigger. Yeah. It's like,
Too late.
Too late. I love that line.
They weren't that big. So,
Well,
the
okay.
80s. It was the 80s.
Anybody else notice the coin trick that Val Kilmer did that he
Yes.
did later on with the pens and Top Gun?
Mhm.
And the coin again in Tombstone.
Exactly.
Willow as well, right? Didn't they do a?
Probably.
Most likely.
It's a thing that Val
something
Kilmer
to
can
do with
do,
his
so-
hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why not throw it in?
Yeah.
Exactly. You know, and it's just interesting because there was so many awesome lines in this movie and roles and everything, and it was just, I love this movie. I'm sure I'll probably end up watching it at least a dozen more times during my lifetime, and if I ever see it on cable, boom, it's there. I'm like stuck on it. And you know, it's just fun. And you know, if Laszlo could end up winning an RV, so could we. You know, that's the thing.
It's a moral imperative.
It
Of
is
course,
a moral
it is.
imperative.
I
From the
use that line all
Frito
the
Lay
time.
Company, remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I can't eat baby gherkins without thinking of him saying anyone else have that dream with surrounded by women throwing tiny pickles at you? Is that just me?
Why am I the only one who has this dream?
But my
Also,
favorite line from that little section though is when he says, "No, that's not what happened." I saw him go into the closet. He's like, "Well, why do you go in the closet to get my clothes?" But that's not why he gets in there.
Of course you didn't.
Your clothes are twice his size. He's twice your size. They'd never fit him.
exactly.
15 points higher than me, and you think a man like Laszlo is going to wear your clothing?
Hmm. Exactly.
He's been like Laszlo is one of my favorites just because John Grice has been in so many things. He was Wolfman in the Monster Squad.
Yeah.
Love that movie.
In Taken, he was in one of my favorite episodes of Psych. He's everywhere, and I love him. Every time I see him, I'm like, oh, this is gonna be awesome.
And he plays such
I loved
a great
him on The
character.
Pretender.
Yes. Very much so.
He
Very,
has,
very much so.
because of the fact that he doesn't speak all that much, especially at the beginning of the whole thing.
Well, the first 3/4 of the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But even through that, he turns in some phenomenal physical humor just with his face and his emotions and his movements. The moment in which Chris realizes that he can freeze the beam. He can freeze everything. He hugs him, all that stuff, and he runs out. And Laszlo's clearly leaving the room with his last batch of entries, and this whole chaotic thing with Chris happens. And what does he do? Turns around and goes right back into the room. He's like, you know what? He was the first introvert, I really feel like, that we got to see properly on screen. I will say this, the humor that Chris has in this film, who sees a young Ryan Reynolds?
Oh yeah.
Oh, very much so.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very much so.
So I hope then, when people are watching Deadpool for the 17th time this month, I hope that they'll go and watch this film and kind of see where Ryan probably came up with the ideas.
Oh, I guarantee it.
As far as Val Kilmer goes, though, I think that sort of humor, I think he actually brought that with him when he did Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
Oh yeah.
That speed and some of the stuff in there is just you can see like I feel like Chris Knight grew up, finished his science stuff, and decided to become a detective.
Because he can meet more women.
Well, exactly.
Well, he was gay and Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, but sure, more men.
Whatever.
Yeah. No, Chris Knight was definitely not gay in this. No. So, but it was interesting. And, you know, some things in this movie actually inspired me in life. We actually had a fish tank just like theirs in our college apartment,
Nice.
which was just awesome. So we had the water cooler as the fish tank. It was just awesome. So, and we had 2 fish, Calvin and Hobbes. It was awesome.
Awesome.
I
Dude,
love it.
that's cool. I had also been inspired by this film. I was a social outcast all throughout college and didn't fit in anywhere, much like Mitch. And then eventually got my parents to take me home.
Oh. But after they played your phone call on the PA system?
Oh, yeah.
Of course.
Daily.
Of course.
That was the worst.
But
That was another 80s trope, though. That was a very 80s trope.
Yeah.
Was, we'll record his phone call, his embarrassing moment, and then we'll play it on the loudspeaker, and everybody will laugh, as opposed to somebody going, dude, what a dick move.
Right, like someone stand up and say, stop this. Like, this isn't funny.
Yeah.
Well, this was the 80s. It was funny at the time.
That was the 80s.
Yeah. Youth.
Wait till you see the crimes committed in Revenge of the Nerds.
Yeah. Oh, God, yes. Well, it was funny because, you know, you saw how angry Mitch was getting during the phone call. I fully expected him to pick up the tray and slam Kent in the face with it or something like that. That would have been perfect.
No real violence in this film. I mean,
no.
Yeah.
Except by popcorn.
Yeah.
Well, I loved when they put Kent's car into his room.
You can't park that on campus.
Yeah.
Ken, you know you can't park in there.
I've heard personal stories from someone who will remain nameless. In the late 60s, they dismantled the headmaster's car and put it on the roof of the building during shop class with the shop teacher.
Impressive.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is nice.
Mm-hmm.
That is pretty awesome. Well, we're actually running down on time. We have about 5 more minutes. So thoughts on it. How would you recommend this movie to people who have never seen it before? Like Ashley. You know, how would you describe it?
I would say, sorry, go ahead, Lacey.
Go ahead.
No. Ashley, go ahead. You're the newbie.
I was just going to say, coming from my personal experience, I wasn't even necessarily like interested in the concept or the topic, but I really enjoyed it and had a good time. So I would probably emphasize just the focus on the kids. They're smart, they're geeky, but the movie doesn't make fun of them or treat them as stupid for being geeky. And it really emphasizes their friendship and sense of camaraderie and fun. So even if the topic doesn't immediately appeal to somebody, I think that friendship part of the story would bring them in.
Cool. All right. Lacey.
I would tell them, firstly, don't watch the trailer because it gives too much away, because it was the 80s and the trailers always give too much away.
In a world. No.
But if you watch the trailer, most of it is about the guidance system. And so I would just say, get ready for a completely, just a fun ride, to go into it with no expectations, and definitely look for the fast pace. This is not a movie you can watch while you're like on your phone. You have to pay attention because there's so much in the background that just makes it so much more rich. So that's one of the few movies that when I tell someone to watch it, I have to say, put down your phone and watch the movie. Don't listen to the movie, watch the movie. Because
there's so much physical going on behind the scene, behind the main actors and stuff. And that's one of the great things about this film.
And the set decoration is phenomenal. Like, we haven't really talked about, you talked about the fish tank, but like it's insane. Some of the stuff in the background is just amazing to just, I used to have one of those. Oh, I remember, Jeff had one of those at his parents',
Mm-hmm.
A lot of little nitpicky things that you can pick out in the background. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Alex, what about you?
One of the smartest written comedies of 1980s, character focus driven, and rated H for toy.
Nice.
Awesome. That is awesome. Gary.
I would say if you want to watch a really funny 80s comedy that by today's standards isn't cringy, that has heart, and one of the best performances you'll ever see by one of our best actors, Val Kilmer. People really forget how good he is, especially in this era when he was just getting started and the risks he was willing to take. I mean, this movie will blow you away.
This was 2 years before they filmed Top Gun. So,
Yeah.
you know, before he became the Iceman. So this is, you know, pretty awesome. You know, for me, it's, as I like to tell people, it's a fun and smart movie. It's very intelligent. It doesn't talk down to people at all. It doesn't demean people except for Kent. And it's, you know, just a lot of fun. And you're going to, like everyone's been saying, Val Kilmer steals this movie. And it's just awesome. I just loved everything about it. You know, I had a crush on Jordan for a long time. And, you know, she was the perfect geeky girl I was looking for during college and never found her. And it was just like, it was just a ton of fun. You know, Mitch was a great character. He, you know, was the every boy, the smart every boy, I should say. But it was people you could relate to and see in your life. And that's what made it awesome. And folks, if you ever get a chance to watch this all the way, like everyone's saying, watch it all the way through. Don't look at your phone. Don't, you know, there's just so much going on. There's just so much to see. Like Alex said earlier, I didn't catch the scene until this time that they were loading popcorn into the back of the van. You know, it's just, there's just something different each time. And that's what's great about it. And I just loved it. I thought it was pretty darn awesome. So Dragon Con people, thank you so much. Gary, thank you for having us. You could, of course, find us all one time or another on Earth Station One. You could find us on the Earth Station One podcast. So, you know, please, you know, definitely look below. You'll be able to see, you know, ESOnetwork.com or Earth Station One. And folks, it's been a great time. Enjoy your virtual Dragon Con. We'll tip a glass of apple pie to you next time. On behalf of myself, Mike Faber, Alex Autrey, Lacee Aderhold, Ashley Pauls, and of course, the one and only Gary Mitchell. Thank you so much, my friend. And we're done. Bye.
Bye.
And we're done. Hit record.
Cool.